Imagine a person at 85 with the memory of a supercomputer. We met her and her secret will shock you. My name is Agnes Cooper, and I just turned 85 last spring. People often look at me as if I've done something impossible. They say things like, "Agnes, how on earth do you remember everyone's birthdays? You still know all your piano students from the 1970s? You recalled my daughter's middle name from one conversation 3 years ago." I just smile, because honestly, I don't have a perfect answer. When you reach my age, people expect you to forget things. They expect names to slip, memories to fade, stories to blur around the edges. But somehow, my memories are sharper now than they were in my 50s. I can still recite the recipe my mother used for lemon meringue pie. I remember the smell of the wood floors in our first apartment in Chicago. I can tell you exactly what I wore the day my husband proposed. A yellow dress with tiny white buttons. Sometimes even I wonder, why me? I've lost friends to Alzheimer's, to confusion, to that slow fading of self that breaks more hearts than death itself. I've seen families whisper, "She's not the same anymore." And yet here I am, 85, remembering details that surprise even my doctor. It feels like a small miracle. But I'll be honest, it wasn't always this way. I used to fear the same decline everyone talks about. When I turned 65, I started forgetting little things. Where I'd left my reading glasses. Whether I'd already fed the cat. Small things, yes, but enough to make me worry. And one night, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea, I whispered to myself, "Is this how it starts? The slow unraveling?" That was the night I decided I wasn't going to surrender my mind to time. I wanted to understand what really shapes memory. Not from a textbook or a pill bottle, but from real life. From the inside out. People assume it's all genetics, that some of us are just born lucky. My grandmother lived to 96, but she couldn't remember my name at the end. My mother was bright until her late 70s, then the fog came. So, no, I can't blame or thank my DNA. If you asked me today, "Agnes, what's your secret?" I'd tell you this. It's not one thing. It's the symphony of small, deliberate choices I made every single day, and I'll share them with you. But first, let me tell you how it began. It started with curiosity. When you lose a little of yourself, a forgotten word, a misplaced thought, you start searching for answers. I began reading everything I could find about the aging brain. Not the medical jargon, but stories. People like me, fighting to stay sharp. I learned about neuroplasticity, a big word that simply means your brain can change, even at 85. That idea lit a fire in me. So I became my own experiment. I wanted to see if I could teach my brain to grow stronger, even as my body grew older. Every morning, after feeding my canary and watering my orchids, I'd sit by the window with a crossword puzzle. At first, it was just for fun. But over time, I noticed something strange. I was getting faster. I was remembering clues from past puzzles, seeing patterns I'd never noticed before. My curiosity deepened. I began keeping a little notebook, writing down one new fact every day. Something like, the brain uses about 20% of the body's total energy. Omega-3 fatty acids build healthy cell membranes and neurons. Learning a new language activates memory centers in the hippocampus. Tiny facts that became my daily vitamins. And the more I learned, the clearer it became. This wasn't about luck. It was about nurturing the brain like a garden, planting new seeds, pruning the old ones, feeding the soil. Some people pray every morning. I practiced remembering. I would recall the names of my high school friends, my old phone numbers, even the license plate of my first car. I'd say them out loud, like an affirmation. You're still here, Agnes. Your mind still works. That daily act of faith, remembering on purpose, became my quiet rebellion against time. But here's what truly fascinated me. When scientists finally studied people like me, the ones who kept their memories sharp into their 80s and 90s, they discovered something astonishing. It wasn't just genetics. It was lifestyle. It was how they lived, what they ate, how they thought, how they rested. Every small decision, every habit, every emotion left a fingerprint on the brain. And that's when I realized, maybe I wasn't just lucky. Maybe I had been training my brain all along without even knowing it. So if you've ever looked in the mirror and wondered, am I starting to forget more than I used to? I want you to know this. It's not the end. It's the beginning of something you can still shape. Our brains are more flexible than we've been told. They crave stimulation, novelty, movement, and love. I'll show you how I built the habits that keep my mind young, from what I eat to how I breathe before bed. But before that, I want you to see that this isn't about perfection. It's about patience. Because a sharp mind at 85 isn't magic. It's the quiet reward of a life lived with curiosity, gratitude, and rhythm. And maybe, just maybe, you can have it too. I used to believe my memory was something that just happened to me, like eye color or height. You're born with it, you use it, and one day you start losing it. But life has a funny way of teaching you that the small, ordinary choices you make every single day are what truly shape you. When people ask, Agnes, how do you keep your memory so sharp? I don't give them a miracle answer. I tell them about my mornings. Every day I wake up around 6:30. I don't rush. I sit at the edge of my bed, stretch my arms, and thank the day for arriving. Gratitude, that's the first spark of memory. Because when you recognize where you are, your mind wakes up to presence. I make my tea. Green tea with a slice of lemon and sometimes a drop of honey. The warmth anchors me. Then I open a book. Always something new. Sometimes poetry, sometimes a book about the stars, sometimes history. I've read about Cleopatra, the Titanic, the origins of jazz, anything that makes my brain dance. See, I learned that the brain loves surprise. It thrives on newness. If you only feed it routine, it starts shutting doors. So I made it my mission to open those doors. At 70, I started learning Italian, not because I planned to visit Rome, but because I wanted to feel like a student again. The first weeks were messy. I mixed up words, laughed at my own mistakes, and sometimes spoke with my hands more than my mouth. But something magical happened. I could feel my mind stretching, reaching. Neuroscientists call it neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells. I just call it joy. Every time I learned a new phrase, it felt like lighting another candle inside my head. My days are not extraordinary, but they are intentional. After breakfast, oatmeal with walnuts and blueberries, I go for a walk. I don't walk fast, but I walk long, sometimes 2 miles, sometimes 3. There's a park near my house with a path that smells of pine and wild mint in summer. Walking for me is not exercise, it's meditation. I count my steps in my head, notice the rhythm of my breathing, listen to the rustle of leaves. My mind sorts through the noise of the world while my feet keep time. And here's the thing. Science now says that regular physical activity, even simple walking, increases blood flow to the brain, feeds it oxygen, and helps form new neural connections. But I didn't need a study to tell me that. I could feel it. When I came home, my thoughts were clearer, my memory was steadier. It's as if my feet were rewiring my brain. People assume that keeping your brain sharp means doing crossword puzzles all day. Don't get me wrong, I love my puzzles. But it's more than that. It's about staying engaged with life. When you reach 85, people stop expecting things from you. They stop asking your opinion. They start repeating things slowly as if you're fragile. But I refuse to live like I'm fading. Every Wednesday I volunteer at the library helping children find books. Their energy rubs off on me. They teach me new slang. I teach them patience. I remember every child's name, not because I try hard, but because I truly see them. That's another secret. Memory follows attention. When you love something enough to see it fully, it stays with you. In the evenings, I like challenges that push my brain sideways, like jigsaw puzzles, Sudoku, or learning a new song on my old piano. Sometimes my hands tremble, but my mind feels young when it's learning. And when I make a mistake, I laugh. Laughter, you see, heals memory. It releases tension, softens perfectionism, and lets information flow again. I've read that lifestyle choices, especially staying mentally active, moving your body, and nurturing curiosity, can slow cognitive decline by as much as 30 to 50%. But numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is how you feel when you live that way. I don't feel like I'm fighting against age. I feel like I'm dancing with it. Every crossword, every walk, every page turned, every new word learned, they're small conversations between me and my future self. When I look back, I realize how much these habits became my compass. They guided me through loneliness after my husband passed. They gave structure when the world outside felt uncertain. And maybe that's the deeper secret. A sharp memory isn't just about remembering facts. It's about remembering yourself. The brain is like a dear friend. It stays loyal when you pay attention to it. And the more love and curiosity you give it, the more it gives back. So, if you're listening to me now and thinking, I'm too old to start something new, please don't believe that. At 70, I learned a new language. At 75, I began painting again. At 80, I joined an online history group. At 85, I'm still growing. The day you stop learning is the day your memory begins to fade. Not because it has to, but because it no longer feels needed. Your brain wants to serve you. It's waiting for you to invite it back into life. So when people call me a super ager or say I have a supercomputer memory, I smile. Not because I'm special, but because I've learned something simple. Memory isn't something you keep, it's something you practice. And that practice, vitamin me of curiosity, movement, laughter, and connection, is available to anyone at any age. If you opened my kitchen cabinets, you wouldn't find much that comes in boxes or bright plastic wrappers. No sugary cereals, no instant soups, no diet snacks that taste like chemicals. Instead, you'd find jars. Old glass jars with handwritten labels. Almonds, chia seeds, turmeric, green tea leaves, olive oil from a friend's orchard in California. It's not fancy. It's just real. People often ask, Agnes, what's the secret food for memory? And I tell them, there's no secret, only consistency. Because food isn't magic. It's memory's quiet architect, shaping the brain one bite at a time. Every morning, my breakfast looks like a little ritual. A bowl of oatmeal, slow-cooked, creamy, with a handful of blueberries and crushed walnuts. The smell alone wakes me up before the tea even finishes steeping. When I was younger, I ate whatever was convenient. Toast, bacon, sometimes even donuts on the way to work. But when I hit my 60s and began to notice those little lapses, forgetting where I parked, losing words mid-sentence, I started paying attention to what I fed my mind through my mouth. That's when I learned that the brain is hungry, not just for calories, but for information. And food is one of the ways it receives that information. Blueberries, for instance. Tiny, but powerful. I once read a Harvard study that found older adults who ate blueberries at least twice a week had slower cognitive decline. They're rich in anthocyanins, compounds that protect neurons from oxidative stress. I didn't memorize that study because I wanted to sound smart. I remembered it because it gave me hope. Every spoonful of blueberries feels like a promise. A small, sweet act of rebellion against forgetting. Then there are the walnuts. I started adding them after reading that they're high in omega-3 fatty acids, especially ALA, a type of fat that supports cell membranes in the brain. Some call it brain food. I just call it breakfast with purpose. There's another thing I can't live without: olive oil. I drizzle it on everything, vegetables, soup, even on my toast with a sprinkle of sea salt. I started this habit after learning about something called the Mediterranean diet, which doctors from Harvard and the NIH often link to better cognitive health and reduced risk of Alzheimer's. It's not a diet, really. It's a way of living. Fresh vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, fish, and healthy fats. The kind of food that loves you back. Olive oil, in particular, contains compounds that reduce inflammation in the brain. And when inflammation quiets down, neurons communicate more clearly, like a phone line without static. I don't eat it because it's trendy. I eat it because I can feel the difference. When I switched from butter to olive oil, I noticed my focus improved. My skin, too. softer, brighter. But the biggest change was in my mind. I felt lighter. Food affects mood, and mood affects memory. It's all connected. Here's something people overlook. Water. Our brains are 75% water, yet most of us treat hydration like an afterthought. I used to drink coffee all day and forget about water until I felt dizzy. Now, I keep a clear glass pitcher by the window, filled with slices of cucumber and mint. The light catches it and it reminds me to drink. Not because I'm thirsty, but because my brain needs it to think. Even mild dehydration can make you foggy. So I sip slowly, like it's medicine for clarity, which in a way it is. As I added better foods, I had to let go of others. White bread, sugar, sodas, processed meats, all those little comfort foods that sneak into your life when you're tired or lonely. At first I missed them, but then I realized how they made me feel. Sluggish, bloated, cloudy. When I cut them out, I started sleeping better. My energy returned. My thoughts became sharper. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about noticing how food made me feel, not just how it tasted. I've never been a fan of supplements. My doctor once told me, "Agnes, you could bottle your habits and sell them." I laughed, but he was right. Instead of pills, I have my teas. Green tea in the morning for focus, chamomile or lavender tea at night for calm. Green tea contains a compound called L-theanine, which helps the brain stay alert but relaxed. That sweet spot where creativity and clarity live. I read somewhere that Buddhist monks used to drink it before meditation for that very reason. When I drink it, I feel the same. Awake, but peaceful. It's a small ritual, but it trains my brain to slow down, breathe, and remember. Food is more than nutrients. It's connection. On Sundays, my granddaughter comes over to cook. She's 23, bright and curious, always glued to her phone until we start chopping vegetables. Then she slows down. We talk about everything: her college, my memories, our favorite books. I tell her how garlic and turmeric reduce inflammation, how leafy greens like spinach feed the brain with folate and vitamin K. She rolls her eyes sometimes, but she listens. Last week she said, "Grandma, I made your lentil soup for my friends and they loved it." That made me prouder than any test score or compliment, because that's how wisdom survives, passed down through recipes, not lectures. Every meal is a chance to remember. When I chop onions, I remember my mother crying over the stove, not from the onions, but from joy, humming old songs as she cooked. When I smell basil, I'm back in my first garden, hands in the dirt, feeling alive. When I pour olive oil, I remember my trip to Greece in my 50s, the sunlight, the laughter, the way life tasted simple there. Eating mindfully is my way of keeping the past and present connected. So no, I don't have a miracle diet, but I do have a philosophy. Eat as if your brain is listening, because it is. Every bite is a message, and when you feed your body with kindness and intention, your mind thanks you with clarity. There's something sacred about silence. When the world finally goes quiet, no ringing phones, no hum of television, that's when my mind begins to heal. I didn't always understand this. In my younger years, I believed that being busy was the same as being alive. I filled my days with chores, work, people, plans, and when I finally lay down at night, I was so tired that I couldn't sleep. I would lie there staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing like fireflies in the dark, each one lighting up a worry. Did I forget to pay that bill? What if my memory starts to slip like Mom's did? What will happen when I can't remember my own stories? Those nights my heart would beat fast, my mind spinning, my body frozen. And one day I realized I wasn't just tired, I was stressed. It's strange, isn't it? We think of stress as something that happens to young people, deadlines, jobs, children. But at my age, it's quieter, more invisible. It comes as loneliness, uncertainty, the fear of decline. That kind of stress is poison for the mind. Science calls it cortisol toxicity, prolonged stress that damages brain cells, especially in the hippocampus, the part of the brain that forms memories. When I learned that, it shook me. I thought, so this is how we lose ourselves. Not just from age, but from tension that never leaves. One evening, about 10 years ago, I was visiting my doctor, and he asked me how I was sleeping. I laughed and said, like a cat on caffeine. He smiled, but then his tone softened. Agnes, he said, if you don't let your brain rest, it can't remember properly. Sleep isn't laziness, it's housekeeping for the mind. He explained something I'll never forget. During deep sleep, the brain actually washes itself. It's called the glymphatic system, a natural cleaning process that clears toxins and old proteins linked to cognitive decline. That night, I went home and promised myself I would start treating sleep like medicine, something sacred, not optional. These days, I start slowing down as the sun sets. I turn off the lights in half the house, leaving just a warm lamp on in the living room. The dimness tells my body it's time to release the day. Around 8:30, I make a cup of tea, chamomile with a dash of cinnamon. I sit by the window and look at the moon. It's my quiet conversation with the sky. Then I write 3 things I'm grateful for in my notebook. Some nights they're big, my health, my family. Other nights, small, the neighbor's cat, the scent of rain. Gratitude, I've learned, lowers cortisol. It tells your body, you are safe. And safety is the doorway to sleep. By 9:30, I'm in bed. I put my phone away. I don't need its blue light stealing my dreams. I read a few pages of something gentle, nothing dramatic or sad, usually poetry. Then I close my eyes and breathe. I count each inhale and exhale slowly until the rhythm carries me off. I used to think I was just resting my eyes. Now I understand I'm recharging my brain. People ask if I meditate. I suppose I do, though I call it listening inward. In the mornings before the day begins, I sit in silence for 10 minutes. No music, no guidance, just breath. I picture a calm lake, sunlight on the surface. Thoughts come and go like ripples. When I first started, it was difficult. My mind wandered to old memories, to-do lists, the ache in my knees. But with time, something changed. The noise inside me softened. I began to notice the space between thoughts, that quiet place where peace lives. And that peace, it turns out, is medicine for memory. There's research from Stanford showing that mindfulness, simple breathing and awareness, increases gray matter in the hippocampus. That's the same region that strengthens with learning and shrinks with stress. I didn't need to see the brain scans to believe it, I could feel it. When I practice stillness, I remember things more clearly, not just facts, but moments, emotions, names. Because calm creates room for memory to settle. Here's something else most people don't realize. Solitude and isolation are not the same thing. Solitude is chosen. It nourishes. Isolation is imposed. It erodes. After my husband passed, I went through a season of silence that wasn't peaceful. The house felt too big, the nights too long. My thoughts grew heavy. I noticed that when I went too many days without seeing anyone, my memory dimmed. I forgot where I placed things, what day it was. I didn't feel like me. Then my granddaughter Lily started visiting every Sunday. We'd cook, talk, laugh. I could almost feel my brain waking up again. Connection does that. It's not just emotional, it's biological. Social interaction releases oxytocin and dopamine, the same chemicals that help form and recall memories. When I'm with people I love, I remember better. And when I feel calm and safe, my mind stays clear. Some people are afraid of silence, of just sitting still. But to me, stillness isn't emptiness. It's space for the soul to breathe. I've learned that the mind can't create or remember when it's constantly bombarded. It needs moments of quiet to file away the stories of your life. So, every afternoon, I take what I call my golden pause. I make a cup of tea, sit by the window, and let my thoughts drift. I don't force them, I don't analyze them. I just let them wander like clouds. Those are the moments when old memories resurface. A childhood melody, the smell of my father's cologne, the face of a friend I haven't seen in decades. It's as if silence opens the drawers of my mind, one by one, and gently reminds me of who I am. These small rituals, rest, breathing, connection, gratitude, they're my natural therapy. I don't meditate because it's trendy, or sleep because a doctor told me to. I do it because every morning I wake up with my memories intact, and that, to me, is proof that peace works better than pills. So if you struggle to sleep, or if your mind feels heavy with worry, remember this. Your brain can't bloom in chaos, but give it stillness, and it will surprise you. When people look at my life from the outside, they often think I've done something extraordinary. But the truth is, my super memory was built out of ordinary moments. Quiet, gentle decisions that stacked up like stones in a path. No miracle pills, no complicated formulas, just small choices made consistently. I call them my invisible habits. You might not notice them if you spent a day with me, but they're the invisible thread holding my clarity together. Every morning, before I reach for my glasses or even step out of bed, I whisper 3 words. Thank you, memory. It might sound silly, but it's a promise between me and my mind. I thank it for staying with me, for holding on to names, faces, scents, and stories. Gratitude activates something powerful in the brain. I once read that when you practice thankfulness daily, your hippocampus, the memory center, actually grows stronger. But I don't do it for science. I do it because it reminds me that my mind is alive, and I get to wake up inside it every single day. And you know what? Starting the day with gratitude shapes the way I notice the world. Colors feel brighter, sounds feel gentler, my mind feels open. That openness, I believe, is what allows new memories to take root. If you could see me in the morning, you'd laugh. 85 and still stretching like a cat. My body isn't as strong as it used to be, but movement isn't about strength for me. It's about rhythm. I stretch my arms toward the ceiling, roll my shoulders, breathe deeply through my nose, and then I move, sometimes yoga, sometimes slow dancing to old jazz records. I move because the brain and body are partners in longevity. When you move, you increase blood flow, feeding your brain with oxygen and nutrients. There's a study from the University of British Columbia that says regular aerobic exercise can increase the size of the hippocampus. But I don't need a study to tell me what I feel. After I move, I think better. Even 5 minutes of gentle dancing in my kitchen makes me feel like my mind has been washed clean. I have another habit that might seem strange. I talk to myself, out loud. When I'm cooking, I narrate. 2 teaspoons of olive oil. Don't forget the time. When I'm walking, I describe what I see. The maple leaves are turning orange today. The air smells like rain. It's not loneliness, it's training. Speaking out loud helps memory by engaging multiple senses: sound, motion, emotion. Sometimes I even tell myself stories about my past, about people I've loved, about lessons I've learned. It's like restitching the quilt of my life each day. When you tell your story often enough, you never lose the thread. Music has been my companion since I was a child. My father used to play jazz records on Sunday afternoons, the kind that filled the whole house with trumpet and laughter. Now every evening, I play one record, not for nostalgia, but for memory. Music, I've learned, is one of the last things the brain forgets. Even people with advanced dementia can recall lyrics from their youth. There's something sacred about that. When I listen to Ella Fitzgerald or Louis Armstrong, it's as if the notes themselves polish the edges of my mind. Sometimes I hum while washing dishes or sing softly while folding laundry. Those melodies keep my neurons dancing, and perhaps more importantly, they make me feel human. Every night before bed, I open my journal, a worn leather notebook I've kept for decades. I don't write much, just a few sentences, something I learned, someone I met, a moment that made me smile. Writing isn't about keeping a record, it's about strengthening recall. When you put a thought into words, you're carving it deeper into your memory. I once read a study from Stanford that said, writing by hand, not typing, activates multiple areas of the brain simultaneously. I don't need the study to convince me. I can feel my brain light up as my pen moves across the page. And later, when I reread old entries, I realize that the act of remembering has given me something even more precious than clarity: continuity. I'm not just living days, I'm collecting them. One of my favorite sounds in the world is my own laughter. Not because it's special, but because it's proof that I'm still alive. I laugh every day, even when things go wrong. Especially when things go wrong. I remember one morning I poured orange juice into my tea instead of water. I looked at the cup, blinked, and then started laughing so hard I almost cried. That moment could have been one of frustration, a sign of aging, of forgetfulness. But instead, it became a memory of joy. Laughter does something powerful inside us. It reduces stress hormones, boosts circulation, and increases oxygen intake, all things that feed the brain. So yes, sometimes I laugh at my own forgetfulness, because humor, not fear, keeps the mind young. There's one more small habit I treasure, what I call my 1-minute memory. Each evening, I close my eyes for 60 seconds and replay my day in reverse, like a movie reel running backward. I see the meal I cooked, the person I spoke to, the way the sky looked at sunset. Then I whisper a quiet, "Thank you." It's simple, but powerful. That 1 minute of reflection helps store short-term memories into long-term storage. I don't know if neuroscientists would call it a technique. I call it tenderness. People often think memory fades with age, but I've learned that what really fades is attention. When you stop noticing the small details and the smell of coffee, the color of the sky, the sound of your own laughter, your brain loses interest in storing them. So, I made a pact with myself. I will keep noticing, because life isn't made of years. It's made of moments. And remembering them one by one is how we stay alive inside. When people hear my story, they often say, "Agnes, you're lucky. You must have been born with a strong mind." I smile, but I always correct them. No, I wasn't born with it. I built it, brick by brick, day by day, memory by memory. And that's the truth I want you to carry with you. Your mind isn't slipping away. It's waiting for you to nurture it. No matter how old you are, 60, 70, 85, your brain still wants to learn. It's never too late. Scientists call it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and grow new connections, even in old age. But to me, it's simpler than that. It's proof that your spirit never stops being curious. When I began this journey 20 years ago, I didn't set out to be an example. I just didn't want to forget who I was. And now I know. Remembering isn't just about holding on to the past. It's about staying awake to the present. If you can still feel wonder, if you can still learn, laugh, or love, your memory is still alive. If you were sitting here with me, maybe over tea and a slice of lemon cake, this is what I'd tell you. 1. Feed your brain like it's family. Give it real food, colorful food, food that comes from the earth. Blueberries, olive oil, walnuts, leafy greens. These aren't trends, they're gifts. 2. Move every day, even if it's just to your favorite song. Movement tells your brain, we're still needed, and a brain that feels needed will fight to stay strong. 3. Rest deeply. Sleep isn't laziness, it's when the brain does its best work. Dreams are not a waste of time, they're memory being reorganized into wisdom. 4. Stay curious. Learn something new every year. A language, a recipe, a skill. Curiosity is like sunlight for your neurons. It keeps them reaching. 5. Laugh often, because laughter cleanses the mind better than any medicine I've tried. 6. Love people. Stay connected. Call your friends. Hug your grandchildren. Love, too, leaves a chemical trace in the brain, a pattern of safety and joy that keeps your neurons alive. Here's what I believe now. Memory isn't just stored in the brain, it's stored in the heart. When I remember my late husband's voice, it's not logic that brings it back. It's love. When I smell cinnamon and think of my mother's kitchen, it's not a neuron firing in isolation. It's a feeling, soft, living, tender. So when you nurture your emotions, when you forgive, when you let go of anger, when you choose peace, you're not only healing your heart, you're healing your memory too. Because the mind and soul are not separate. They breathe together. If you've listened to my story and thought, that sounds beautiful, but I don't know where to start, start small. Start with your morning. Before you check your phone, before you rush into your day, take one deep breath. Then whisper to yourself, I am still here. I still remember. Write something down. Drink a glass of water. Go for a short walk. Call someone you love. And when you eat, eat slowly. Notice the texture, the smell, the taste. Because noticing is remembering. Every time you do one small, intentional thing for your brain, you're not just maintaining memory, you're building legacy. I used to fear growing old. Now I see it as a privilege, an invitation to become more of who I already am. At 85, I've learned that life doesn't shrink as you age. It expands inward. You start valuing depth over speed, meaning over noise. And your memories, they become like small lanterns lighting your way home. Every one of them matters. So take care of them. Not with anxiety, but with tenderness. Because your mind isn't a machine, it's a garden. And the older the garden, the more beautiful the bloom. I'll keep learning. I'll keep reading and writing. I'll keep stretching and laughing and loving. Until my final day. Not because I'm chasing longevity, but because I'm honoring life. And if there's one thing I want you to remember from all of this, it's this. Don't let the world convince you that getting older means fading away. You are not fading. You are refining. Every choice you make, every page you read, every meal you savor, every deep breath you take, is a message to your brain that says, stay with me. I still need you. And it will. If my story touched you, if you saw even a small piece of yourself in my words, don't keep it quiet. Tell someone. Share your own habits, your own victories, your own ways of remembering. Leave a comment. Start a conversation. Because the more we talk about memory, honestly, tenderly, the less alone we feel in our aging. And if you know someone who's beginning to forget, remind them gently that there's still hope, still joy, still growth ahead. We may not all have the same genes, but we all have the same choice. To live with intention, to love with memory, and to remember what truly matters. The truth about my memory, I'd tell you, is that it's not a gift from nature. It's a love letter I've written to myself every single day. So take this story as your invitation to begin your own, to write your own love letter to your mind, because you too can keep it sharp and alive and forever curious.